The truth is, it doesn't have to be. Even if you're still working your 9-to-5 job right now and dreaming of getting your business going. The reason is because what your brain might be thinking about how hopeless something feels is not necessarily true. Because we are literally programmed to think linearly. It goes all the way back to when our survival depended on being able to make those linear connections. Like, I just escaped that saber-toothed tiger, and now I gotta go find something to eat. So we're hardwired for survival, not success. But the reality is, we don't live in a linear world. One of my favorite examples is Warren Buffett. He did not make his first million until he was 32. But after that, his growth snowballed until he was a billionaire at age 55. So 32 years to make just 1 million. And then 1,000 times faster growth in the next 20-something years after that. The point is not that we need to make $1 billion, but that your growth can and probably will compound much faster than you can imagine if you get out of your own way by shifting your default hardwiring. That's why in this video, we are gonna cover 4 tips that I've used, not only to build personal financial freedom for myself as an entrepreneur, but also to help a lot of other people do the same as well. Starting with this first tip, which might initially seem counterintuitive, but which will actually help you get there much faster. Because the reality with building your first business is that everything is gonna take you way longer than you think. This is not to make you feel bad, by the way, because if you really integrate this, you will probably make more money and faster than 99% of entrepreneurs. There's this story I love, where Jeff Bezos supposedly once asked Warren Buffett, "If your style of investing is so simple, why doesn't everyone just do it?" You know what Buffett said? Because no one wants to get rich slow. But you know what happens when you aren't willing to get rich slow? You start looking for shortcuts. Speaking from a lot of personal experience, this means that you end up shooting yourself in the foot, like giving up on things before they have time to actually take fruit. One of my favorite analogies that I always remind myself of, so that I don't sabotage myself with this mistake, because I have the same tendency, is planting a seed. A tree will take as long as it takes to grow from that seed, and there is not much that you can do to speed up the process. So your job is to keep it watered, keep the soil fertilized, and protect it until it sprouts. There are no shortcuts. In fact, if you try to overwater it, for example, to get it to grow faster, you will probably end up killing that seed. And it's the same way in business. The crazy thing is, you probably logically already know this, but this is another example of how our brain is hardwired for survival, not success. Because we're literally programmed to look for shortcuts so that we can get instant gratification. Because that's how we ensure that we ate as much as we could whenever we could to survive. So you kind of have to fight that biological programming in order to be able to give your business seeds the time they need to sprout. That's why tip number 1 is to consciously be anti-get rich quick. In my opinion, the easiest way to do this is to take your focus off of how long something takes, and instead focus on the things that you can control and that will naturally grow your business and thus your income much faster anyways, so that you grow faster without being tempted to self-sabotage. Like with this YouTube channel. You can literally see that I posted hundreds of videos before I had any kind of audience. And it wasn't until after about 6 years of consistently posting weekly videos that we finally had 2 videos go viral, at least viral for me. And that finally pushed us past 30,000 subscribers. During this time, I got my gratification from feeling proud of being able to maintain that consistency, of putting out really quality content, and of seeing my video and communication skills improve with each video. That's what kept me going, even when the results weren't there yet. So I hope you take away from my example that your growth will compound. It's just math. Your only job is to not take yourself out of the equation before that can happen. That being said, you also can't forget reality. You've got bills and responsibilities that can't and won't wait. So you also have to do what you need to do to be able to give yourself the luxury of having that time so that things can compound. That's why, for example, I personally stayed in my job until my first online business was making enough to replace my salary. And even to this day, I've always kept my living expenses low relative to my business revenue. It doesn't feel the best in the short term, but your future self will be telling you, high five to that. However, even when things get going, it's not gonna instantly be, poof, you're rich. But unfortunately, this is often how entrepreneurship and financial freedom are portrayed online. You've probably seen people with fancy cars, homes, and vacations that they're seemingly able to get just in the blink of an eye. But that's not the reality of running and growing a business. I have now been helping people start and grow their own businesses for the past 10 years. So I've seen behind the scenes of a lot of businesses. And I can tell you, there are a lot fewer businesses than you'd think that are making the kind of money it takes to support that. Even if your business is bringing in lots of revenue, you also have expenses to go with that, like paying your team, overhead, taxes. Your business income is not the same as your personal income. In fact, there is a very scary statistic about entrepreneurs that only a tiny percent of them even have $100,000 saved by the time they retire, because they put all their money back into their business. Honestly, in the beginning years of my business, that was my mentality too. And it all goes back to that survival piece. We are programmed to think just one step ahead. So my thinking was basically, if I put all my money back into it, the business will grow faster, and thus I'll get rich faster too. I know it sounds silly now, but this thinking is actually so common, especially when you're newer in business. It wasn't until I read this book that I realized that that thinking was never going to get me to financial freedom. Instead of thinking of your business as the driver behind your financial freedom, you want to instead adopt a profit-first approach. So you start with asking, what do I need to do first to take care of my end goal, aka your long-term financial health? And then you take out that money for you first before you get wrapped up in the excitement of hiring someone new or implementing a new strategy. This allows you to put your financial freedom first so that you don't end up like most of those entrepreneurs who put all their money back into their business and then end up having little to show personally for it. We are not gonna let that happen to you. And that's why this is tip number 2. But there is one big caveat. It is normal for a business to take some time to be able to get to this point. For example, in my first 2 years building this business, I didn't pay myself a salary because that's what it took for me to be able to build a solid foundation for this business. The important thing is to realize that your business will go through different phases as you're building it. Unfortunately, this is just not something most people think about. So if you want to learn more about that, I'll link my video where I walk you through it. You'll notice that we're talking about being super intentional with your choices, because the mistake that a lot of business owners make is to think, I'm just going to focus on making more, and eventually I'll have so much that everything else will figure itself out. But don't forget, it also takes more to make more. For example, I've had a lot of people say to me over the years, I want what you have, 7 figures a year and mostly passive-ish income. Now, to be clear, of course you can have it, but the question is if you want it, because what it took to get here is that in my first few years building this business, I worked almost nonstop and put almost all of my profits back into growing the business. But I also don't have kids. I love what I do. And I had a very clear vision of what I wanted to create and to be able to do. So it was worth it for me. But compare this to a very different choice that I've seen a lot of my smart clients make over the years. Will grow their coaching business to multiple 6 figures and set it up in a way that gives them great fulfillment, income, time, and profits. After which, even though they could grow more, they make a very intentional decision. I don't want more, at least right now. They're hitting their financial goals, they're enjoying their business, and they've also got plenty of time for their family and the other things they want to do. I have so much respect for that. And that's what I'm talking about when I say financial freedom, because it's not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. And it's also not about just trying to get to as big a number as possible in your bank account. In fact, I believe the true definition is having the money that allows you to live the way you want to live, including how you make your money. That's why tip number 3 is to think about what you actually want and then let that inform your goals for your business. But that being said, even with the best preparation, sometimes things are just out of your control. Back when I was running a lot of Facebook ads, there would be days when I would be spending thousands of dollars a day and have several days go by without a single sale. Whenever that happened, my team and I would hustle and double check everything. But most of the time, we'd end up not finding anything. And then a few days later, sales would pick back up to their normal pace. And this isn't just about ads specifically. The point is, no matter how good your strategy, your skills, your product, and your work, there are still gonna be times when you're just not gonna get the results that you want. So yes, be optimistic and have a strong mindset, but also don't be delusional. That's why tip number 4 is to plan for success, but prepare for failure. That includes planning your budget, salary, and expenses with your worst case scenario in mind, not your best. For example, for years, I put out YouTube content completely unedited. You can scroll back on this channel and see. And for years, people would ask, how can you possibly have a real 7-figure business when you don't even have a video editor? But even 7 figures goes fast when you're not managing it properly. And back then, I had other priorities that were a better use of my resources, like investing in SEO and ads. And I will take looking a little less polished over adding unnecessary financial stress just so that I can appear a certain way any day of the week. If you feel the same way I do, and you care more about building a truly strong and smart business that supports building your dream life and financial goals, I think you'll also love this awesome free PDF that I have for you. It'll walk you through 5 money-making secrets I learned from building a $10 million plus business. And honestly, if I'd known them earlier, I probably would have gotten there faster and not wasted nearly as much. I think you're gonna find the takeaways really useful, and you can get the free PDF at luisazhou.com/secrets.